Welcome to Courageous Conversations with Dr. Christina. This is Moving Forward Monday, a space for honest dialogue, real life, and healing conversations that help us move forward with intention. This podcast is audio only by design, so you can listen without distraction and receive what you need at your own pace. Let's get into today's courageous conversation. Before we begin, I want to create a safe listening space. This podcast discusses real-life experiences related to trauma, healing, and growth. Nothing shared here is meant to re-traumatize or overwhelm you. You are always in control of how you listen. You can pause, skip, or step away at any time. This podcast is not a substitute for therapy or professional support, but it is a space for honesty, reflection, and courage. If at any point something feels heavy, please take care of yourself in whatever way you need. You are not weak for needing support, and you are not alone.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you grabbed your coffee, your tea, or whatever you need to settle in for a minute, because today we're not rushing this conversation. We're going to sit in it. Now listen, if you had a chance to catch episode 1, then you already started tapping into something real. You started recognizing what it feels like to experience loss early. Not just what happened, but what it did to you. But today, we're going a little deeper. We're talking about grief and loneliness. And not just the obvious kind. I'm talking about the kind that shows up when everything looks like it's back to normal, but you're not. And before we go any further, let me say this. Grief is a process. It's not something you rush. It's not something you get over. And yes, sometimes it feels very lonely, but that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that right after something happens, everybody shows up, right? You get all the text messages, you get all the calls, and they begin to say, let me know if you need anything. You know, it feels like they're right there and they're going to walk through this process with you. But then a few weeks go by, a few months go by, and suddenly everything goes quiet. Have you ever felt like that? Wait, guess what? You're still dealing with this, but everybody else has moved on like nothing ever happened. And now you're sitting in the grief and feeling the loneliness. Talk to me for a second. What did that feel like for you? Was it confusing? Was it frustrating? Or was it one of those moments where you didn't even realize what was happening? You just started handling it on your own, because that's what happens. We don't always decide to grieve alone. Sometimes we just end up there. And I'll be honest with you. When I lost my mother at 13, there was no pause button on life. School didn't stop. Responsibilities didn't disappear for my caretaker. And guess what? I still had to show up. And I want you to really hear this. I didn't learn how to grieve instead of functioning. I learned how to grieve while functioning. Now think about this for a second. How many of us are doing that right now? You're still showing up. You're still handling business. You're still being there for everybody else. but quietly carrying something heavy. Let's be real. You ever walked into a room? Have you ever walked into a room and nobody even knew what you were holding? Because guess what? You're still smiling, you're still talking, and you're showing up like everything is okay. But internally, you're like, if y'all really knew. I remember being there. I remember walking in like everything was okay. But even in that moment, I did not even recognize what was going on because I did not understand grief or loneliness. And I know I'm not the only one. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt truly seen in your grief? Not fixed. I'm not asking how you handled it. I'm asking you, how did you really feel while in your grief? Were you actually seen? I want you to take a second with that. Take a second because for some of us, it's been a long time that we even have been able to give grief a name because most of the time grief is just an internal feeling. So sit with that and ask yourself, when was the last time I really felt seen while I was grieving? I want to ask you something. Can we just talk about something real for a minute? I want to talk about at least statements. You know, when we say, at least she's not suffering, at least you're not strong, at least you had time. That's the response that people normally give us when grief come upon us. They're always trying to fix it or rush us out of our process, right? But sometimes it's not about fixing it. It's not about rushing it. It's about sitting in it and internalizing it, feeling it, processing it, right? Let me ask you something else. When those statements at least was made, did it actually make you feel better? Or did it make you feel like, okay, I guess I shouldn't feel this anyway anymore? Because sometimes people mean well, but what they say shuts the conversation down. And what do? Right? When they shut the conversation down, what do? We begin to adjust. We begin to say, I'm good. But deep down inside, we're not. And over time, that turns into a pattern. You stop reaching out. I know I did. I became very isolated. We stop expressing what we need because we don't want to be a burden. So we begin to say, I got it, right? But let me gently challenge that. Did you really get it? Or did you just learn how to carry it? Let me say that again. Did you really get it? Or did you just learn how to carry it? Be honest with yourself. Where did you learn to grieve alone? Was it at the funeral? Or was it after the call stopped? Or was it after someone said something that made you shut down? Just think about it. And I'm not asking you to answer that out loud, but I don't want you to skip past it either. Because here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you for needing more support than you had. Absolutely nothing. And just because people stop checking in doesn't mean your grief expired. It doesn't mean your grief expired. So here's what I want you to sit with today. Where did I stop reaching out because I felt like my grief was no longer welcome? And if I'm honest, am I still doing that right now? No pressure. No pressure. You do not have to fix it today. There is no pressure. I just want you to sit with that and think about it. I want you to just be aware, because awareness, that is where the healing starts. If I can just be totally transparent right now, and I told you all that my mother, I lost my mother when I was 13. And at 13, we're still childlike because we're still a kid. And I knew nothing about processing grief, or with grief come loneliness at some point. But to be totally honest, that loss destroyed my childhood. It made me look at life totally different. It made me look at grief in a different way. Even when I learned what grief was, grief became survival. Loneliness became a way of life because I did not want to let people in because I was afraid that I would lose them. So I walked around guarded, trusting no one. And I'm talking about this now because I have overcome and I have learned what healthy grief looks like. And that loneliness does not say that I'm alone. And loneliness is the way that we perceive needing some time alone. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But if I reach one person doing these podcasts, then I've done my due diligence, because if we walk around in unresolved grief, then we shut ourselves off from receiving the help and the assistance that we need to get through that process. We were never created to do life alone. So I'm asking you to sit in these questions and really think about it, because you're not alone. Not anymore. Thank you for showing up for yourself today.
Thank you for sitting in this conversation today. If you recognized yourself in this episode, know this: loneliness and grief does not mean you were too much. It often means you were carrying something heavy without enough room to process it. As we continue this season, we're not reopening wounds. We're understanding patterns. Be gentle with yourself. Keep choosing courage and keep moving forward.